A quiet village's beloved doctor hides a chilling secret behind his caring smile, drawing patients into a web of deceit and fear. When a young girl goes missing, the villagers begin to uncover dark truths buried in the shadows of the clinic. What terrifying discovery awaits them? Will they uncover the truth before it's too late? The small village of Zuba had always trusted Dr. Tunde. He was the only doctor, known for his kindness and the way he took care of children. But lately, a strange fear gripped the village. A few children who visited the clinic never returned home. They vanished, leaving no trace, and their parents were left in despair. One sunny afternoon, Ifeoma, a young mother, took her daughter, Nnenna, to the clinic. Nnenna had a fever and Ifeoma hoped Dr. Tunde could help. As they waited in the small waiting room, Ifeoma noticed a painting on the wall. It showed a group of children playing, but their faces seemed oddly familiar, almost like the faces of the missing children. Dr. Tunde appeared at the door, his usual friendly smile on his face. "Come in, Ifeoma, and bring Nnenna," he said softly. Ifeoma's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't explain why, but something about his smile sent a chill down her spine. She entered the room and sat down with Nnenna on her lap. Dr. Tunde examined Nnenna, checking her temperature and her pulse. He nodded slowly. "She will be fine, but she needs to stay here overnight for observation," he said, still smiling. "You can come back tomorrow morning to pick her up." Ifeoma hesitated. She didn't want to leave Nnenna, but Dr. Tunde was the only doctor in the village, and everyone trusted him. "Okay," she agreed reluctantly. "I will come back first thing in the morning." That night, Ifeoma could not sleep. She kept thinking about the strange painting and Dr. Tunde's smile. Her mother's instincts were screaming that something was wrong. She decided she couldn't wait until morning. She needed to check on her daughter now. With her heart racing, Ifeoma quietly left her house and made her way to the clinic. As she approached, she noticed a dim light glowing from the back of the building. She sneaked around and peeked through a window. What she saw made her blood run cold. Dr. Tunde was standing over Nnenna, who was lying on a bed. He was chanting in a language Ifeoma did not understand, and there was a strange, dark smoke swirling around him. Nnenna's eyes were closed, and she looked very pale. Ifeoma covered her mouth to keep from screaming. She needed to save her daughter, but she couldn't do it alone. Ifeoma ran back to the village and banged on the door of her friend, Ao, who was known for her bravery. "Ao, wake up. I need your help," she whispered urgently. Ao opened the door, rubbing her eyes, but when she saw Ifeoma's terrified face, she knew something was terribly wrong. Together, they returned to the clinic. They decided to enter through a side door that was always left unlocked. As they crept through the dark hallway, they could hear Dr. Tunde's voice getting louder. They reached the door of the room and peeked inside. Dr. Tunde was now holding a large book, his eyes glowing strangely in the dim light. Ao gasped softly when she saw that the book was filled with strange symbols and drawings. Ifeoma whispered, "We need to get Nnenna out of there, but we have to be careful." Just as they were about to enter, Dr. Tunde stopped chanting and turned his head sharply toward the door. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice cold and sharp. Ifeoma and Ao ducked behind the door, their hearts pounding. "I know you are there," Dr. Tunde said, his voice calm but threatening. "Come out now, or I promise you'll regret it." Ifeoma knew they couldn't hide forever. She took a deep breath and stepped out, pulling Ao with her. "We're here for Nnenna," she said firmly, trying to keep her voice steady. "What are you doing to her?" Dr. Tunde smiled, but it was no longer a friendly smile. It was cold and menacing. "I am trying to save her," he said. "But you are interrupting. If you want your daughter to live, you should leave now." Ao, sensing the danger, whispered to Ifeoma, "We need to distract him." Ifeoma nodded. She picked up a chair and threw it at Dr. Tunde. It missed, but it gave them a moment to rush to Nnenna's side. Dr. Tunde's face twisted with anger. He grabbed Ifeoma's arm with surprising strength and pulled her back. "You have no idea what you are dealing with," he hissed. "If you take her now, you will doom her soul forever." Ifeoma struggled, kicking and shouting. "Let her go," she screamed. But Dr. Tunde tightened his grip, dragging her away from the bed. Ao, quick thinking, grabbed the book from the table and threw it into the fireplace. The book caught fire instantly, and Dr. Tunde let out a scream of rage. He released Ifeoma and lunged at the fireplace, trying to save the book. In that moment, Ifeoma grabbed Nnenna and ran. Ao followed close behind, and they bolted out of the clinic, not looking back. They ran through the dark streets, hearing Dr. Tunde's angry shouts behind them. "You cannot escape me," he yelled. "I will find you, and you will pay." Ifeoma and Ao reached the village square, where the elders had gathered, drawn by the noise. Panting, Ifeoma told them everything, and the elders listened, their faces filled with shock and disbelief. They decided to confront Dr. Tunde at once, but when they reached the clinic, it was empty. Dr. Tunde had vanished, leaving no trace. Days passed, and the village searched for him, but he seemed to have disappeared. Meanwhile, Nnenna began to recover, though she was still weak and had nightmares about a dark figure chasing her. Ifeoma, too, was haunted by what she had seen, and she knew they were not safe yet. One night, a stranger arrived in the village. He introduced himself as Nnenna, a traveling herbalist. He was friendly and offered to help heal the sick children. But Ifeoma did not trust him. She noticed how he always seemed to be watching her, and how he avoided looking directly into her eyes. Ifeoma decided to follow Nnenna one evening, and what she discovered sent chills down her spine. Nnenna was meeting with Dr. Tunde in secret, just outside the village. They were talking in hushed tones, and she could hear them mention the ritual and the children's souls. She ran back to the village and warned the elders, who were shocked but not entirely surprised. They realized that Dr. Tunde had been plotting something all along, and that Nnenna was his accomplice. The elders devised a plan. They pretended to accept Nnenna's help, inviting him to the village square for a ceremony. Nnenna, sensing an opportunity, agreed, thinking he could deceive them. During the ceremony, the villagers surrounded him, and the elders confronted him. At first, Nnenna tried to deny everything, but when one of the children recognized him from the clinic, he knew he was caught. Under pressure, Nnenna confessed that he had been working with Dr. Tunde to complete a dark ritual that required the souls of innocent children. He revealed that Dr. Tunde was hiding in the forest, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The villagers decided they had to confront Dr. Tunde once and for all. Armed with torches and sticks, they marched into the forest, determined to put an end to his evil plans. They found Dr. Tunde in a clearing, surrounded by strange symbols carved into the ground. He was chanting, his eyes closed, a dark energy swirling around him. The villagers charged, but a powerful force pushed them back. Ifeoma stood her ground. She had been studying the symbols and realized they were part of an ancient spell. She remembered a counterchant from an old book her grandmother had once read to her. She began to recite it, her voice strong and steady. Dr. Tunde's eyes flew open, and he screamed in rage. "No. You don't know what you are doing," he shouted, but Ifeoma kept chanting. The ground shook, and the symbols began to glow with a bright light. Dr. Tunde tried to stop her, but the villagers formed a circle around Ifeoma, protecting her. As the light grew brighter, Dr. Tunde's form began to waver. He screamed again, a terrible, piercing sound, and then, with a blinding flash, he disappeared. The forest fell silent. The villagers looked around, stunned. Dr. Tunde was gone. Ifeoma collapsed to her knees, exhausted but relieved. She had done it. She had saved her daughter and the village. But as they turned to leave,